Hey, we want to thank you for allowing us to come and share with you. I am not born, but raised in Lakeland, Florida, and I feel like I'm just coming home when I come here. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So it was last summer, and I was sitting with the barber shop getting my hair cut in Albania. You know, we get our hair cut over there too. What do you guys do when you go to a haircut? Get a haircut, besides get a haircut? You talk a lot, right? Yeah. So I was sitting there talking to my friend Faulty, and Faulty was one of these guys who came from the village to the city of Durrës, where we minister, and they were coming there for desperate situations from these remote villages under communism. They were told to stay there. Then when communism opened up, democracy opened up, he came and moved into the big city to try to find work, try to find a future. Well, he didn't find much where we live. We minister in a squatter zone. He came to the squatter zone, didn't know what to do, and so he opened up a barber shop in his garage, right? So here I am talking about talking with him, and he says, Ken, the village is magnificent. I love the village where I came from. It's beautiful. It's up in the mountains. It's clean and all that. He kept talking and talking. And he said, Ken, we're going up there in a couple of weeks. Can you come with us? And he invited us up there. And my wife and I went. It was a long drive a couple weeks later. And we went about 3 hours on this dirt four-wheel drive road up these mountains and to this very primitive house and very poor situation. But when we got out of the car, we were greeted so warmly. I mean, they just immediately served us coffee and water and a stiff drink, which I didn't drink, but and made sure we were comfortable. And then they started to kill the fatted lamb and roast it on an open fire for 3 hours. And we sat down to that wonderful lamb and all this other food and beautiful mountains. And I thought, wow, this is all beautiful. What's more beautiful is that the people's hospitality, that they would go and do that. They didn't have much. They didn't have much at all. But what they had, and even more so, they were willing to share with us.
Well, today we want to share stories that allow you to come to Albania with us. That's what we want you to experience, some of the things we've experienced in the last 12 years that we have served the Lord there. We came to visit here 10 or 12 years ago, and it's an honor to see all the changes that are going on here. But, our challenge to you is, how can you come alongside us? How can you pray in a better way, because we're going to take you there today. We sensed a call like the pastor. When he pulled into the driveway here, he and his wife cried. He shared that with me. When we landed in Albania and I touched my foot on the ground, there was a peace that I felt in my heart that I didn't see. I knew that's where I need to take my 3 kids and raise them and minister for the Lord. Story. I would like to share with you an amazing insight into the lack in Albania. Now, I noticed that almost everyone here are wearing glasses, right? Now, if you were to take your glasses off, how much could you read? Not much. Okay, we have one person who could see. Okay, the rest of us, I can't see without my glasses. Well, it's an amazing thing for me to be able to sit in my living room with a group of women and to have one of the women begin to weep as we're reading the Bible. And the reason she was weeping is, first of all, she hadn't read in 20 years because she didn't have any reading glasses. And so, is there a Dollar General in Zephyr Hills? Yeah, there's a Dollar General in every town in America, okay? And at Dollar General, you can find reading glasses for $1, and I pack them up, put them in my suitcases, and Emanea, my friend, was able to read for the first time in 20 years, but guess what she was reading? She was reading the Bible for the first time in her life. She had never read the Bible. And she's continuing to read in our Bible study.
Then she said, came home and said, do you have another pair of glasses? My husband needs them. And now they're reading the Bible together. And we're reaching out to them. Also last summer, I was walking down the street with a friend of mine named Endry, a young man, about 21 years old. And we were talking about the up-and-coming young adult meeting. Well, see, Endry, a Muslim boy, was one of these boys who always sat back. We have this teen group on Friday. We get the teens together and we try to deal with them and try to minister to them. And as challenging as teenagers are, we do that. Teenagers are great, for the teenagers in the back there. We love teen ministry. But this Endry guy was one of those teens who always sat in the back and said, well, this is a bunch of fairy tales. We talk about the stories of the Bible or something about Jesus, and he'd say, well, that sounds great, but it sounds like a bunch of bunk. Anyways, shortly after this, another young teen came up and said, hey, we would like to start a young adult Bible study because we're now 19 and 20 years old and we're done with the teens. Can we do something ourselves? And I said, sure, let's do it. And he said, well, Ken, when can you teach? When can we do this? And I said, I'm not doing it, you are. And that started a young adult meeting that has propelled our church forward today. Endry, they rotated leadership. It was time for him to lead. And he had never professed Christ. We were walking down the street and I said, what's the deal here, Endry? What's going on? I heard you're leading the Bible study next week. And he said, yeah, I feel the responsibility. So I started preaching, how teachers are held to higher accounts and preachers are held to higher accounts. The words we don't like to read very often. And he goes, yeah, I feel the responsibility. I said, Endry, but what's the deal? Where are you at? And he used an Albanian expression, my foot is stuck. I am standing on the rock of Jesus Christ.
As I left my house and I walked out, it's about 3 blocks. Those blocks in our neighborhood, you have to go over these little bridges that go over open sewage canals. And so your prayer life increases dramatically when you come visit us. And so we walk over the boards that are the little bridges and praying the whole way. And as I get out there, I see this little girl from far away, and she sees me, and she begins to say, Tata Donna, Tata Donna, Tata Donna. And here she comes, and all the neighborhood kids are running behind her. That means it's kind of like Aunt Dawn. And they come running to grab me, and I remembered as we walked to her house, the first time I had met Anissa was at the foot of the bed of her mother. Her mother had fallen off the 2nd floor and broken her back. Her husband, Anissa's father, didn't know what to do with an ill wife, and so took her back to her mom and dad's. And the mom and dad didn't know what to do with her, so they let her lay. And when I walked into the house, I saw Anissa and her brother sitting at the foot of her mom's bed. And this lady couldn't walk. She was young, and she couldn't walk. And, I felt totally helpless. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. What are we going to do? And I decided, okay, I'm going to pray for this lady. But can I just say that's what it was? I'm going to pray. Prayed over this lady and left. I came back the next day. And in Albania, you just walk in the house. They walk in our house. We walk in their house. And you just walk in. And I walked in, and the bed where she had been laying was empty. And this missionary of little faith was stepping back, going, I'm afraid what happened here. And as I backed out the door, I turned, And Anissa's mom was walking toward me. And she gave me this huge hug, and she said, Dawn, God answered your prayer. And I said, oh no, God answered our prayer. Further on, there was a time when Anissa's father was going to choose not to put her in school. Girls are not highly valued in a Muslim culture. There's no real reason to send a girl to school. And so we went to have a little chat with him. And it was an amazing time for me that day when Anissa came up and gave me a hug, because she took me to her home and she opened up her school books, and she had 100% in all of her classes. And she's starting 4th grade this year. She will not be trafficked because she is being educated.
Well, a little bit more about our background. First of all, who knows where Albania is? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow, that's more than any
5. Did Dad just tell you back there? Okay, yeah, good. Oh, look, he's got a smartphone out. You know, he's looking up, where is Albania? Okay, so you guys, can you all find the boot of Italy on the map? You know, Italy's a boot, right? Well, if you kick the boot back, you know, behind the heel, you hit Albania. So we're behind the boot there in the southern Balkans, southern Europe, really. 2017, Europe needs Christ. You think of all the Christians who came over to America. Well, today, Europe needs Christians to go back and minister. Albania is about 75% Muslim country. But guess what, guys? Have you ever heard of a Muslim country who like Americans? No, you don't hear that on the news, huh? Albania is one of the few Muslim countries that love Americans. So we actually can walk down the street and get huge paid respect, get the fatted lamb cooked for us, and they really love us, because if it wasn't for America, Kosovo, which is also Albania, would not exist today. If you guys remember the war from 1999, and believe it or not, they praised Bill Clinton for that. But anyways, I won't get into that issue. But a Muslim country that likes America. And President Bush went there, and he just was loved on, and they wanted to just give him so many hugs, the Secret Service was going crazy. But we were called out of a church, small church in America, about 13 years ago, out of pews, very similar to yours. We were both engineers. I was an engineer, she was raising the kids, but a previous engineer. And God said, you're full. You've got enough of the Bible. You've got enough of the truth. You've got enough of the discipleship. Go and reach out to the nations. It doesn't make sense for an engineer. It's a God thing, right, Pastor? You know, it's a God thing, because it doesn't make sense for us to be in Albania. It doesn't make sense to leave a lucrative career in engineering to go to this place. But God, when He makes it clear, we go. We arrived there 12 years ago. If you look at the prayer card behind that door, we had 3 little kids with us. They were 5, 8, and 10 when we left the country. And now they're all in college, so you could pray for that. Want to share the scripture?
We're very simple folks. When you think of missionaries, a lot of times people tend to put us up here. Please don't. And so therefore, God gave us a very simple scripture that He called us. Trust in the Lord, do good, dwell in the land, and cultivate His faithfulness. And I would challenge you that God also calls you to do the same thing.
You may wonder, 12 years in Albania, what have you gotten? You may be wondering, is it really worth it all? Have we ever asked ourselves the questions, is it really worth it all? About 3 years ago, I got a phone call from a very angry young man on the phone saying, hey, I need to get to my ex-wife. Where is she? And he was calling me from a Greek prison. This man was in prison for trafficking. He kidnapped a French person and was trafficking them in Greece. Anyways, he calls me. Well, he found out that somehow my wife was a friend of his ex-wives and said, I need to get in touch with her. I need to find her. I need to find my wife and my daughter. And I said, well, I can't help you with that. You see, his wife and his daughter left when he went to Greek prison, were sent, again, daughters were just sent back to the parents. And they were sent to the in-laws, and she had to live with her in-laws. But she was abused and oppressed. She became a Christian. Her daughter became a Christian through our daycare center for children of widows that we do some humanitarian work there. Great girl and a great mother. But her mother-in-law would sit there and rip the Bible up in front of her and put it into the wood stove and say, I can't have you reading that in my house. So she finally decided to leave, and we assisted her. We helped her. We encouraged her. We didn't, encourage the divorce, but we encouraged her to stand up for Christ and stand up for what she believes and get away from the situation. That's when this man was calling me. And then he said, I need you to put me in touch with my wife, and I said no. He then sent word that he was going to kill us and our children, 3 children that were with us. And I said, we've been ministering to a clan, this very extended family, for 7 or 8 years, and we're thinking, what have I done with the 7 and 8 years? We're going to have to pack up and go home. This is ridiculous. Is this really worth it all? My family's at risk. Well, I decided to go talk to the clan leader, the family leader, and say, here's the situation. Turns out this guy that was threatening my life was part of the clan. And I said, this guy's threatening my life. Here's the situation. We sat down and had a coffee. You guys do coffee? Who does coffee here? Okay, well, we do a lot of coffee in Albania. Everything's done about coffee. You can have coffee but then when you need to have a coffee with somebody, that means we need to have a talk. So I went to the clan leader and had a coffee. And I explained the situation. And he said, Ken, I see that you've only helped this girl stay off the streets, not get trafficked. I've see that you've been ministering to our community for 7, 8 years, helping with water projects, helping with other things, helping with this widows program, helping the widows, helping the poor, helping the down and out. He said, Ken, all I've seen you do here is good things. When he gets out of prison and he comes here, we will set him straight. And that's when I knew it was worth it all.
The Lord has given us the privilege to see no fruit for 9 years in our ministry. And I say privilege because now we are starting to see the Albanian people raise up. The leaders are raising up. My husband hasn't preached in a year. There's a church council that has formed, and our goal and what the Lord has laid on our heart is to not have a church that's dependent on America. We want to see the church stand alone and be Albanian. And so in order for that to happen, as Ken continues to do leadership development, we are going to become less so they can become more. And so we want to thank you that some of you in this room may remember when we came before, and you've been a part of that prayer that has been so important to allow us to be patient, to not leave, to not pack the suitcases, to endure, and to allow the Lord to raise up the leadership in Albania. We have been so honored, and we will continue to be as we do leadership development.
In 2013, I went to the neighboring country of Kosovo, which is also Albania, just a region of Albania that was owned by the Serbs. And I was standing on this balcony praying over the city because there was no church. I was up there to meet some other missionaries who had been serving there for 8 years. And believe it or not, they were retiring. They needed to go home. And so I had the hard job of helping them pack up and send them home. Well, the other reason I was up there was to meet some of the believers they were working with and try to get them plugged into another work, another church, someone else who could minister to them and continue the work. I was up there very frustrated for that whole day, finding out. I heard that the Baptists were up there. I heard that this other group was up there. I heard that this other group was up there in the city of 200,000 people. And there was not a single fellowship in this city. And I had no place to send these families who are starting to learn about the truths of Jesus from their Muslim backgrounds. Heartbroken, praying over the city, realizing that some of the people in the city were still walking around with crosses burned into their chest from the Serbian occupation, from when the Serbians tried to ethnically cleanse them. The same thing that's going on in Syria and in Sudan today was going on in Kosovo in 1999. I won't be going there with a cross, but that's not the Christ I want them to know about. I want them to know about the love of Jesus Christ and the overwhelming joy and the because he lives type of words that empower people and give people hope. I would appreciate your prayer as we consider reopening the field of Kosovo. We're in the need of people to go up there. We're in the need of prayer. We're in the need of support to see. In 2017, there are cities in Europe who have no church, have no gospel witness. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Are we full enough? I think we're full enough as Americans to send, to go, and to be Christ to the nations.
So in closing, I want to challenge you. We are in our last weeks in America, and we are in need of your help. We can't do this alone. We know that. We will return to Albania with no help, and we dry up. We need you. We need you in the back to grab one of these and pray. We need you to maybe grab one of these and sign up for our newsletter, to sign up to commit to pray for us. If you get our newsletter, you'll hear, more updated prayer requests. If you're Facebook savvy, we have a Facebook page. We're not on Twitter yet. But my challenge to you is, I know you're reaching out here. At least you better be. Because we're going there, and you need to fill your job here. But what can you do to come alongside us? I think Pastor is on his way up here. We can't go back and make an impact for Christ without your support. And I want you to remember that prayer is like an umbilical cord for the infant church in Albania.